A very good morning to all our members from India, and a very good evening to our guest of honor who has joined us from Washington. It is 9:30 p.m. at his side. Am I right, Todd?
You're absolutely correct.
So, a very warm welcome. I would like to start this session with a small introduction about our organization, Millennium Mams. So, Todd, Millennium Mams is a not-for-profit organization founded in 1993 by our mentors, Mr. Vishnu Dhanuka and Mr. Sanjay Bhuwania, with the sole motive of creating financial awareness and literacy amongst women. The organization has multiplied many-fold since then and has touched lives of more than 10,000 women, giving them an opportunity to build financial acumen. The curriculum imparts financial knowledge through the study of current affairs and business dailies, analysis of balance sheets, attending AGMs, tracking of global economic trends, as well as factory visits. We have chapters in Kolkata, Mumbai, and Bangalore. But we also have members from other cities of India and from few parts of other countries also, like Dubai, Singapore, London, and USA. We invite stalwarts like you to our forum to increase the bandwidth of our knowledge and seek more information to improve our bandwidth. Coming to our guest of honor for today, Mr. Todd Finkle. Todd Finkle has recently won a national award for his popular book titled Warren Buffett, Investor and an Entrepreneur. A big round of applause to Mr. Todd. This book was published by Columbia Business School Publishing, which has been translated into 13 languages. Yes, I'm right, 13 languages. This book is one of the most up-to-date biographies of Warren Buffett that traces his entrepreneurial roots from selling gums door to door during childhood to creating his partnership to forming Berkshire Hathaway and building it into an iconic company. He had done this through his imaginative deployment of financial instruments and creative deal making. Creative is the key word, my friends, and which Todd has pinpointed in his book that he can do creative deal makings. It also evaluates Buffett's investment methodology and mistakes, behavioral biases, Charlie Munger, and the history of Berkshire Hathaway. His book distills Buffett's wisdom into actionable lessons that readers can apply in their own lives and investment endeavors, enabling them to navigate the complex world of finance with confidence and clarity. Todd, he grew up in Omaha and went to high school with Peter Buffett, Warren's son. He has made 6 visits to see Buffett with students and went out to lunch with him 3 times. He also attended the last 14 shareholders meetings, including the COVID-19 one, which he watched online. So Mr. Finkle has he is an entrepreneurship professor for 34 years. He is a pioneer and innovator in entrepreneurship education, founding 2 nationally ranked programs. He also has 39 years of investment experience and he is currently at the Pigott Professor of Entrepreneurship at Gonzaga University. Welcome, Todd, to our forum.
I'm honored that you had so many good things to say about me. Believe me, I'm not that good.
This is the least we could say about you, Todd. This is the least. So the floor is open to you, Todd, for your keynote speech, after which we will continue with our Q&A session.
Okay, let me share my file here. Can you guys see that?
Yes.
All righty. God, you did a great job of kind of telling a lot about me, so I'll just kind of skip this page and go to this page. It took me, I grew up in Omaha with the Buffetts in Omaha, Nebraska, and I went to high school with Peter, and I got to know Peter relatively well. He was a couple years older than I was, but I used to hang around with him and all of his buddies at lunch, and we would eat lunch together. And one of the lessons that Peter, I could tell, learned from his father was is hang around with people that are smarter than you. So here's Peter hanging around with this table of all just some of the most brilliant people that I've met in my life. And one of the things about our high school that most people don't realize is that we were always in the top three in math in the country in the United States. So we were really, really good in math. And we had one of the kids that was at our table went on to be a CEO of two public companies in Silicon Valley. So that's one of the things that I noticed about Pete. Pete was really humble. He wore a baseball cap and ripped up jeans. And back then in 1976, Berkshire's stock price was only $69. And today, if I'm not mistaken, it's what, $550,000 or something, something like that. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that nobody really knew who Warren Buffett was back then. And he had a company, a public company, but still, it was very, very few people knew him. And certainly nobody at our table knew him. And here's a picture of the family. Howie is there on the left. That he was friends with my brother David. Susie, his first wife, died of cancer, and there's Warren, and that's Susie Jr. And there's Pete, the guy that I hung around with. So I took 6 trips to go visit Warren, and I took students on each of those trips. And this is just a picture of Warren. I took a picture. This is, back in 2009, I took this picture of him eating a root beer float at lunch. And the root beer was really funny because the root beer float is 3 times the size of all of our root beer floats. And that's why he has this big grin on his face. Anyway, so the trips were wonderful. The students just loved it, and we went to like 3 subsidiaries of his in Omaha, and we had a 2.5 hour Q&A with him, which is all in the book. 3 2.5 hour Q&As, new material. And then we went out to lunch with him, and we all had our picture taken with him, and he just loved teaching. And he has said that if he wasn't an investor, he would be a teacher.
Sure.
So I just loved it, and the students loved it. And at the end, I would ask the students, what was the biggest thing that you got out of visiting him? And they would say, usually nothing about money, but it was about how to be a better person.
Right.
And I'm going to give you some of the things that he talked about later. So here's one of the groups of students that I took to go visit him. And here are the chapters in my book. One of there's a chapter on Charlie Munger, which, I did before he passed away, which was too bad. And but I loved this chapter so much when I was writing it that I wanted 2 chapters on Charlie, but they wouldn't let me. The publisher wouldn't let me do 2 chapters. But there's just so much knowledge out there. And there's not that many books that have been written about Charlie. To me, the most important chapters in the book are these 4 through 7. 4 through 6 is about value investing and Buffett's secret sauce. And one of the things that I was telling um, um, uh, uh, was it Gaina? Megna
Meghna.
about,
Yes.
sorry about that,
No problem.
was that I had never seen anybody in any Buffett book give an actual real world example of what he does when he's trying to value a company. And I was so frustrated with that I wanted to do that. And I put it in the book, and I did all the calculations by hand because I'm old school. I'm old, and that's what I'm used to doing, not through, old school means you know how to do it. And so I put that into the book, and it was great. It's a great resource for people that aren't even familiar with business and finance, that they can go ahead and follow it, even if you're in communications or biology or whatever. And the chapter 7 on behavioral biases is really eye-opening for me. I've been teaching entrepreneurship, so this was a new chapter that a friend of mine really pushed me to do. This was the last chapter that I worked on, and I looked at 7 of the most popular or the most obvious behavioral biases, and I talk about what they are. I talk about the whole field of behavioral finance and the people that, kind of started it. Really, Charlie was the first one that was into it back in 1976. But then I talk about some of the guys that were the first people that were into it. And then I look at each behavioral bias and I give an example and how to overcome those biases. Another chapter that I found very interesting that I didn't see before was a chapter on Buffett's investing mistakes. Here and there you would read about his mistakes, but not only do I talk about his mistakes, but I also talk about the behavioral biases that led to those investing mistakes of Buffett. And there are other chapters about the shareholder meetings, philanthropy, and happiness, or trips in fintech and succession issues. And my differentiation, what's funny is that I wanted to share with you some entrepreneurial things tonight. That, to be a successful entrepreneur means that you have to think for yourself, and an investor for that matter. They both kind of integrate with each other. So, before I started to work on this book, it took me 9 years of research. I was doing all these things with Buffett and all these trips and visiting him and everything. I had no idea that I was going to write the book. And there are already a lot of books out there. So I was thinking to myself, why write a book on Buffett? And everybody told me not to write the book on Buffett. So I'm thinking, as an entrepreneur, I'm going to write a book on Buffett because everybody's telling me not to do it. So I had to find a way to differentiate myself from everybody else. And of course, one of the ways is that I'm from Omaha and I know the family. So I was able to talk about that. And entrepreneurship is an angle that nobody's really taken before. So I integrate that into the book. I integrate a chapter on Munger into the book, which most people don't write about in their books, and investment mistakes and behavioral biases. I haven't really seen a lot about that in the other Buffett books, although Hagstrom has come out with a new book that talks more about behavioral biases. So there's Pete. Most people want to know about Buffett's investing style, so let's get into it. So he's into margin of safety. He wants to buy something for less than what it's worth and hold it a long time and let it compound. He says him and Charlie say you only need 2 classes to be a successful investor: how to value a company, and behavioral finance, or temperament is the way Charlie defines it. Intrinsic value is extremely difficult. I have found it to be very, very difficult because it's part art and it's part science. There is no formula that will give you the correct answer. So with that in mind, I want to go through and look at some qualitative and quantitative factors that would be involved in trying to look at, valuation. Warren says stay within your circle of competence, and your competence, would be, where you work, or something that you're really interested in learning about, learn the industry and learn all the companies and read all the 10Qs and the 10Ks and the annual reports and get to know them inside and out. The management, you want talented, ethical management that have fair compensation. You need to look at their compensation model very closely, because for people like us, it's not so easy to get into these companies and find out what's going on. You also want them to be creative and innovative. Warren's really into being creative and innovative related to being an entrepreneur. I'll talk about that in a bit, but he loves people that are persistent. I've dealt with him related to that, and he loves it. If you're persistent, if you're creative, if you think outside of the box, and you're passionate and you're positive, these are all things that Warren really values. Industry, again, look at the industry and the competitors and the different business models and the brands, and you want to see if they have a moat. And the moat, for example, cost for Geico or even Costco, and brand, Coke, Gillette, and Apple. Quantitatively, he wants a company that's not competing on price, a return on equity preferred at 15 to 20%, debt to equity paid off in 5 years, profit margins around 20%, free cash flow that's consistent and strong. A firm that doesn't need a lot of money, and that a good example of that is See's Candy. They can have said many times that was one of the best purchases that they've ever made. And they made that for $25 million. And at the 2019 shareholder meeting, they said that they've already made well over $2 billion on that investment. Return on net tangible capital, 20%. Inflation, the ability to adjust prices. See's Candy, they raise that price 10% every year. Retained earnings, what do they do with that? Dividends and buybacks. Apple buys back their stock big time. That's one of the reasons why Buffett loves Apple. And valuation. And here's just kind of a summary. I threw this in there at the end quickly to give you an idea of what he looks at. The biggest surprise to me in writing the book was Buffett's childhood. So everybody thinks, oh, he's just some rich guy, and he's had it all handed to him. And nothing could be further from the truth there, because he was born in 1930 during the Great Depression. His father lost his job when he was 1.5. He lost all the family's money. They were destitute. They had nothing. The mother the whole family was in complete chaos. The mother was having mental health issues, and she would yell and scream at the kids and tell Warren that he was worthless. If that's not enough to get you motivated to go out and start selling door to door, I don't know what is, So I really think, I haven't read this anywhere, but I think he has what's called the poverty effect. And I don't know if that's affecting him today, but he obviously is never going to stop working until he dies, just like Charlie. A little bit about entrepreneurship and Warren Buffett. Some people laugh at me when I say that Warren Buffett's an entrepreneur. And of course he is. They don't know what they're talking about if they tell me that he's not an entrepreneur. And but what is an entrepreneur? An entrepreneur, it's not just somebody who starts a company, but it's somebody who really, it's a mindset. it's behavior opportunity seeking in any organization. It can be used anywhere. And I submit to you that your organization is very entrepreneurial. So one thing that what Warren said to us every time that we visited him, I'll never forget this. I sat in the front row and he was looking directly at me when he said this, is that the most successful business people he has met in his life are people with the most business experience, not these Ivy League degrees. They not only do they have the most business experience, but they think creatively and innovatively outside of the box, meaning that they're entrepreneurial. Sorry, I have a little cold. So I love that. I share that with my students 2-3 times a semester. Here's just a kind of a mini picture of his youth. He started being an entrepreneur at 4, selling lemonade on the sidewalk. And then he, moved up to selling gum and Coke door to door at 5 to 6. He read all the books in the Omaha Public Library on the stock market twice by the time he was 11. I wasn't doing that at 11. I don't know about you guys. His first investment was 3 shares of City Service at $38.25. It went down to like 32. And then he started to really sweat and get worried. Then it went up to 40 and he sold it right away, only to see it go up to 200. That was the first time that he realized, hey, I should have, held on to that. That was his first lesson in holding on to an investment. My favorite one really is the pinball company. I'm a little older, as you can tell, because I used to play pinball, and he would buy these used pinball machines and put them into barber parlors, and he'd split the profits 50-50 with them. And by the time he was 16, he had $76,000 US dollars. So this is very important here. This little kid that you're looking at, that's my former graduate assistant's kid. But when Warren was 10, he came to the realization how important money was, because he realized that it would allow him to be independent and he could be an entrepreneur. And the most important thing in his life at 10 years old is he wanted to work for himself and be an entrepreneur. At 10, he realized that. This is just, I won't go over this very much. This is just his partnership years. And I don't have time to talk about that. Sorry, maybe in a Q&A. Keys to Warren's success. He's very rational, and he only focuses on his circle of competence. He doesn't go beyond that. So he's like into banks and he's into insurance, and he's now into gas. He's been buying a lot of Occidental Petroleum. He owns 27% of that now. He's very humble. You'd be amazed at how humble he is. He has the unique ability to have a very high IQ and a very high EQ. Very few people have that. He has the ability to size people up when he meets them. He'll look you right in the eye and try and determine if you're trustworthy or not. And you won't even realize it. And he purchases businesses like he wants to be an owner. Murphy was a friend of his that was also on Berkshire's board of directors. He's passed away. But one thing that Warren learned from him is decentralization and the importance of trust and hiring managers and leaving them alone. So all those kind of combine, very entrepreneurial. So He has 25 people at his corporate headquarters. That's it. How does he do that? Why? How does he get away with that? So he learned that from Tom Murphy. You hire the best managers, the best people, and you leave them alone because they don't want to be managed because they're very entrepreneurial. Entrepreneurs do not want to be managed, but you still have to hold them accountable. So, and trust is a big part of that. You have to be able to trust these people. Another thing that he learned from Tom was being frugal and buying quality businesses. Benjamin Graham was the guy that he learned value investing from and who wrote the two famous books at Columbia. Phil Fisher was another guy that he learned a lot from. And Charlie was big into Phil Fisher. And Charlie and Warren got together, and Charlie convinced Warren to be more like Phil Fisher and get into long-term investing, focusing on quality companies with moats, strong management teams. What Phil Fisher did was, instead of just looking at the financials like Benjamin Graham, he was looking at the totality of a company. The financials and the R&D and the sales team. He was looking at all this stuff. And then he says, buy at a margin of safety and don't buy a lot. You don't need to buy a lot. You don't need all this diversification. Maybe buy 10 companies. And sure enough, does that sound familiar with what Warren's doing? And the whole scuttlebutt methodology is something that he came up with as well. And that's more so going out and talking to people and observing. Peter Lynch was really big into that as well. Here are the behavioral biases that are in my book. And there's our friend Charlie again, and he's eating C's candy like he always does at the shareholder meeting. When I wrote the book, I sent a copy to him. Before I could publish it, I had to get their approval, and I sent it to Warren, and I sent them both of them a big box of peanut brittle. So I was kind of funny. But Charlie's really big into the behavioral biases. He wrote this paper called The Psychology of Human Misjudgment. If you haven't read it, you definitely should read it. In 1976, he wrote that. Finally, the last two slides. I know I'm going pretty fast here. But I want to leave you time to do a Q&A. So
you're good, Todd. You're good.
Personal lessons that we learned. And I've got these spread out in my book all over the place. Personally, money is important in everything, but I think what's more important is being happy. So, that's why I think this is very, very important stuff. So number one is the most important decision, as I've said before, is who you marry. He always tells us that up front when we go to see him. That's one of the first things that he says to us. And this is my favorite one. I will speak no ill of any man and speak all good of everybody. And that's actually a quote from Benjamin Franklin. But I've listened to Warren speak since 2009, I believe. I've never heard him say anything negative about anybody, not one word negative. That's something that we can all learn from. And if I'm around somebody that is doing that, I try to get away. He measures his success by how many people love him. And the best way to be lovable is, I've got a list in the book about all the different things you can do to become more lovable. If you think 2x is going to make you happier than X, you're probably wrong. Unless, X is $5. Do what you love. Work for somebody that you admire. invest in continuous learning, invest in self-improvement, and hang around with people that are better than you. So in 25 minutes, I just kind of summarized my book on various topics. There's a lot I didn't go over, but I'll let Pretty, did I say that
Yeah,
right? Pretty?
yeah. Yes, yes. Thank you, Todd. Thank you very much for those insights about Warren Buffett. I could feel Warren sitting right in front of me, such detailed descriptions of Warren and what he thinks, the way he thinks, how he thinks. I think this is my first encounter of his thinking in such a nice way. Such a nice way. Thank you, Todd, for that. So
You're welcome.
I request Meghna to come up and take the Q&A round from here.
Sure. Thank you, Preeti. Todd, if we could request you to stop the screen share so we can see you better. Yes. Perfect. So, yeah. So thank you so much, Todd. I have your book and I cannot wait to meet you so that you can autograph it. This book is, it is something truly I will be reading multiple times to grasp all the wisdom that it imparts. And our group has a whole lot of questions for you. I'm going to start with the first one. So firstly, about those exciting visits you made with your students, please could you share some anecdotes from those golden experiences, as well as the impact that those visits to Warren Buffett had on your lucky students?
To me, I think the most important thing was the Q&A and learning all that stuff. You know, there would be 6 schools there every time that we visited. And then each school had about 3 questions that they could ask when they went there. And it could be on anything. It could be on economics or investments or happiness or anything. So I made sure that we weren't supposed to record anything. So, but I took really good notes. And I made sure that that was in the book. So I could share that with everybody, you know, in the world. Uh, um, that was the best part, I think. And the students are just so excited. It was very difficult to select students to go to this because everybody wanted to go.
Right.
So I had to create a selection process and get a committee to go ahead and help me select people because I didn't want to select them myself because of the bias problem. But they loved it. Some of them still have a picture, their picture with Warren Buffett on their LinkedIn profile.
Wow.
I had this was a funny story. The first year that we went, I had 2 students. One student that was going around interviewing people and another student that had a camera. So they were creating like this little film of our experience. And I didn't even know that they were going to do it. And they were filming Warren. And Warren asked the lady that was interviewing him to get a resume. If she had a resume, he wanted to see her resume.
How wonderful.
But yeah, to me, the best part was meeting Warren, having lunch with Warren, getting an opportunity to ask him questions. I sat right across from him. So the most important question for me was, how do you value a company? I knew so much about him, I didn't have a lot of questions. And his response was the discounted cash flow method. So that's what I used in the book was the discounted cash flow method. And I went through it very carefully and described everything and showed everybody how to do it.
Wonderful. That must have been really such an amazing experience for all your students. Extremely lucky. And most all the kudos go to you that you managed to take them for it, for such an important thing.
Yeah, and I integrated it into the curriculum as well. One year, I assigned my class 50% of their grade was because you can't just apply for this and get accepted. He wants to see creativity and innovation, and he wants you to earn it. The first time I applied, I said, "Hey, I went to high school with your son, and I'm doing all these great things. I had a nonprofit, and I was giving back to the community." He didn't care.
Oh.
He wanted you to earn your visit. So after I got rejected, I wrote a case study on him and over a 2-year period, and then I submitted it to him after it got published with the hopes of getting invited to go visit him. And he moved us up to go visit him in November of 2009. And that was the same weekend that we were there that he bought Burlington Northern Santa Fe Railroad. And all these television crews were chasing him around everywhere that we went. But he didn't care because he wanted to teach the students. The most important thing to him were the students. That says everything about him, right?
Absolutely. Thank you, Todd. That was really insightful. Thank you for sharing. I would now like to invite Rohini for her next question.
Yes. Hello, sir. So thank you so much for your words of wisdom. Sir, I wanted to ask you that Mr. Warren Buffett says that we had 14 presidents, world wars, 9/11, had Cuban Missile Crisis and Vietnam War, and most recently the COVID pandemic. But he could navigate through all this because he believed in America works. So what was the fundamental behind this belief? And do you see anything similar happening in India at the moment?
I think Warren Buffett is one of the most positive people that you'll ever meet.
Mm-hmm.
That has a lot to do with that.
Yes,
For
sir.
every 100 years in the United States, we have about 15 really bad years in the market. And the
Okay.
market tends to go up over time. And the standard of living has increased sixfold since Warren was a kid. These are things that he'll tell you.
Yes,
Why
sir.
he believes in the American economy, that it's an engine that keeps on roaring and roaring. And he'll also tell you, he'll tell you, just put all your money in the S&P 500, which is our 500 biggest companies. And if you don't have time to do the research, and if you're not in the industry, in the investment industry, then just put 90% of your money into the S&P 500 and 10% into a short-term bond fund and let it sit there and go do what you love to do. Just don't look at the news, don't read the newspapers. Just let it sit there for the rest of your life and come back and look at it and you'll be a multimillionaire.
Yes, sir.
But it's hard for us to do that because of behavioral biases.
Yes, sir. Because of the temperament issue that we are not able to
Yeah.
hold it for long.
And Warren and Charlie both say that valuation isn't the problem. The problem is behavioral biases.
Mm.
You have to be able to control them. And it's extremely difficult to control them because sometimes you don't have that much control over them because a lot of it has to do with your childhood and the things that have happened to you. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir. Completely.
Absolutely.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much, sir.
Can we
So
have
it's part
Gagan?
psychology.
Sorry, sir.
It's part psychology.
Yes, sir. Definitely. Thank you, sir.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Can we have Garima for the next question, please?
Yeah, hi. Good evening, Todd. Thank you for the book. I have read the book. Our sir, our mentor, Mr. Vishnu Dhanuka, has always been emphasizing on Warren Buffett's principles, and your book consolidated all the principles he's been teaching us. So I have a question, like where, sorry, sir. Just give me 1 second. Were there moments of self-reflection or unexpected revelations that arose during the research and writing process of the book, sir? So I had many while reading the book.
Oh yeah, yeah. You're funny. uh I'll be honest with you, Garima. There's not a day that goes by where that book has not influenced me for the better. There are just things in there, like I was mentioning. I shall not say anything negative about anything, only good things. I think about that all the time.
There had been many moments while reading the book that you could just relate the behavioral temperament and the things you've written, the mistakes. So we make it every day in our lives also, not only about the investment, about the life also. So just your any experience you can share with you thought while writing, yeah, this is what one thing has affected me.
Well, I mean, lately we've been seeing the whole uh what's it called? The herding bias. That's it. Herding bias has been going on here in the United States. I mean, in November, our stock market went up 9%. And it's just continuing to go up. I mean, it's great because I'm making a lot of money, but it's kind of scary in a way, to have a stock market go up 9% in a month. Anyway, a mistake that I've made many mistakes, and behavioral biases have affected me and they still affect me. The recency bias affects me. Loss aversion affects me. Loss aversion is that you feel twice as much pain losing money than gaining money. So the problem with that is that because of that, you don't put enough risk on and you don't make as much money.
True.
So, and that becomes worse as you get older because you don't want to lose your money as you're going possibly into retirement. Another thing that I did that was really stupid was during the Great Recession. I don't know if you remember, in October of 2008, Warren Buffett came out and he wrote an op-ed in the New York Times, and he said, buy US stocks now. And I believe the stock market was down 38%. So I was already out of the market during the whole thing. So it didn't affect me, but I looked at that and I thought, well, how does Warren know that it's not going to go down any further? Because he tells us that nobody can predict the future over the next year. Nobody knows what's going to happen. So I didn't buy. And that was a mistake. But it did go down. It did go down like another 25% after he even wrote that. But then, it went up a lot in 2009, especially the banks went. The banks back then were like selling for $2 a share. Bank of America was selling for $2 a share during the Great Recession. Now, I think about that now, and it's just incredible.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Can we have Rashmi for the next question, please? Rashmi Jhabbar.
Good evening, dear sir. Sir, our teacher and mentor, Mr. Vishnu Dhanuka, has been teaching the principles of Warren Buffett for more than 2 decades now, and he's an ardent follower of the same. But sir, for us as students and as investors, there is a lag between his teachings and implementation on the daily basis. So where do you think that we are going wrong, or a suggestion from your end on how to implement it on a daily basis? On a regular basis, sir?
Do you have a full-time job?
No, sir.
What do you do? Are you
I'm a housewife and an investor, sir.
how much time do you have to dedicate to investing?
6 hours?
So what I would do, this is just my opinion, you know,
Absolutely, sir.
what I would do is I would probably put a certain amount of money in one pile, your learning how to invest pile, where it's not going to affect you if you lose it. And the rest I would probably put in, conservative investments, or what do you guys call it? The Nifty 50 that's given an annual rate of return of 17% over the past since 1992, I believe.
Yes, sir.
And you take that and you start to invest. Maybe get around some friends like your group, and you get around and you start talking about a company or two, and you're all doing research, and you give a presentation and give your rationale as why you think it would be a good investment, and learn from your investments, and write everything down. I write everything down. Everything that I do, I have on a spreadsheet. I have this huge spreadsheet with everything on it. All my financials, my insurance, my taxes, just everything is on one spreadsheet. I hope nobody ever comes in and steals it from me. Yeah, I would dedicate it to that and experiment and try and learn as much as you can, and go see your teacher and get some feedback from him about what you're doing. Maybe even talk to him before you do it, and investing is not easy. You're going against the smartest people in the world.
True, sir.
So don't feel bad if you're not doing as well as you think you should be doing.
Thank you very much, sir. That was really helpful.
You're welcome. I wish I could help you more there.
Thank you, sir.
Can we have Nidhi for the next question, please?
Good morning, rather good evening, sir. I'm Nidhi Kanoi from Mumbai. Sir, our mentor also feels that Buffett follows spirituality and the Bhagavad Gita, our Indian spiritual text, without even realizing it. And in your book, you have mentioned his importance on family. So what is your take on Buffett and spirituality?
He doesn't practice anything. I don't know if it's agnostic or whatever it's called. He's not Jewish. He's not Catholic. Buddhist. He's not anything. He's just a good person. And I think knowing Warren the way I know Warren, he's probably read everything on this, because he's Warren Buffett, and he's probably selected things from everything, and he's created how he wants to live his life, and the best way to live his life. And he's probably talked about it with Charlie many times on how to live your life. Charlie, I don't think is as spiritual, I think is the right word, as Warren is. But
You also
that's my
mentioned
guess, but
Preeti,
Nidhi, is that
मेरा
is?
video on कर
that's
दो ना
right, yes.
वापस. Yeah,
I don't really know that much about it, but I know that Meghna's going to send me the book.
Yes, the
So
Bhagavad Gita, yes. So that's one thing we hopefully will be able to present it to you when you come to India.
I need to come to India. You're right.
Yes. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you for having me.
Can we have Vanshika for the next question, please?
Good evening, sir. So my question is about hiring and recruitment. So you mentioned in the book that there are three things that we look at: integrity, intelligence, and energy. So how do we find out the integrity of a person? How do you get there at all?
Well, you talk to people, you try to get as far as away from the references as possible to really find out, about the person. The references are all going to be good, but you try and go a couple steps further and find out about them. Yeah, he's really big on that, and he's not impressed with these high-powered degrees. The Harvard, especially now, Harvard and Yale and Brown and all these big school names. He's not impressed with that. If you're a hard worker and you're intelligent, you're a hard worker, and you have ethics and integrity, he'll hire you.
Right.
I kind of got that feeling even when I met him. I was thinking to myself, I wonder if he would hire me. But, for me at least, I couldn't see going to work for Warren Buffett because being a professor, you're so independent. And I'm an entrepreneur. And the number one motivating factor for entrepreneurs is freedom and independence. So if you gave me a choice of going and making $2 million or whatever, but I'd have to work for some idiot, I wouldn't do it because I wouldn't be happy. To me, that being happy is the most important thing, as long as you can pay the bills. So what I did was, just to add to that, for the past like 30 years or so, I'll spend a whole day with my students talking about internal happiness. I've been doing that forever. I think it's really important.
Yes, sir. That's right. Thank you. Thank you so much.
I have them get out a piece of paper and I write on the board internal happiness, and I say, tell me what makes you happy both personally and professionally, and then we get into a big discussion.
That's really interesting and helpful. And Todd, one more advice he wanted, that, investors have a habit of trusting entrepreneurs and their business models too soon. And this leads to getting in and out of investments. So how do we hold back our thoughts and slow down the investment process?
Yeah, the average time that we hold an investment today is 4 months. And I want to say 20 years ago, it was 7 years. This is a problem. This is a problem if you don't have accounts that are retirement accounts that you're going to have to pay taxes on, or even if you're going to have tax losses. That's a tough one. I'll tell you what Warren and Charlie do is they have said that, maybe in their entire time together, they've made 5 really significant moves. Probably Geico, See's Candy, American Express, Apple, maybe Bank of America. They could count like the biggest investments that they've made that have really made them on probably one hand. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that you need to wait for the right pitch.
Right.
for the right investment. Don't get in a hurry and go with the herd because the stock market's going up or a stock is going up. Do your homework on the stock and get to know the company inside and out. Talk to people if you can on the inside. Talk to your mentor and get his opinion and slowly buy into it. And if it goes down a lot, then buy a lot. It's like waiting by a stream with a arrow trying to get a big fish. You let the small fish go by and you're trying to get the big fish. You know, how long that will take, I don't know.
No.
But that's what you're doing.
Yes. Our mentor, Mr. Dhanuka, has also explained this, wait for the barrel to be empty so you can see the fish. That's one of his favorite examples for explaining to us. Thank you. We're nearly out of time. Can I just take one last question? Preeti, can we have you, please?
Yeah, thank you, Meghna. Hi, Todd. Hi again.
Hi.
Hi. So, Todd, see, I am a new investor as compared to you or Mr. Buffett or our mentors. I am a pretty new investor. So, what, according to you, in this book is one key takeaway that I should be following as a new investor that resonates with me, very relevant to present day? One key insight.
I would say read and learn as much as you can. And you actually could find a lot of really good information on LinkedIn. There's some really smart people that put stuff up on LinkedIn, and I've got a whole list of books that I can send to you that you should be reading. Although I'm sure that your mentors there probably have a list of those books as well. But that would be my advice to you, is try and learn as much as you can. I remember when I was younger and I was in the same situation as you and I didn't know anything, and you just read. I got a degree and I got an MBA, but my PhD is in entrepreneurship. So I did a lot of this work on my own. And you can do it too. You just have to put in the work. When Warren was younger, he read 500 pages a day. Charlie Munger has books all over his house, had books all over his house. He was always reading all the time. Even after he was successful, he kept on reading all the time. Just read and read the right thing. Read Warren Buffett's shareholder letters. That would be a great start. And you can just go to the Berkshire Hathaway share whole website, and they're all there. I even have his shareholder letters from when he had a partnership, during his partnership days, and from 1956 to 69. There's some good stuff in there as well.
Thank you, Todd. Thank you.
But I'll be happy to send you my list if you want to see it.
Yes, please.
Please.
I'll be happy to share my PowerPoint with you guys if you want to see that as well.
Yes, please. Both your PowerPoint as well as your list of readings, please.
I'll send it to Meghna.
Yes.
Thank you so
She'll
much.
give it to everybody.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much, Todd. Over to you, Meghna.
Thanks, Preeti. So as much as we would have liked to continue this extraordinary session, we do value your time, Todd. So thank you so much for being here with us and sharing all your amazing anecdotes about the Oracle of Omaha and your personal experiences.